Well, hey, look who I pulled in off the streets. Said he didn't have anything to do since his pulpit was full. So I said, why don't you come and hang out with us for a little bit? And you can make this every Sunday.
This is how the other half lives right here. Climate controlled, padded chairs, full breakfast.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, you can't keep coming
back. We got
back,
donuts, hard chairs outside.
Roughing it
Must
out there.
be nice.
Yeah. That's the hard life out there. This is...
Yeah. I'm going to start coming here.
No, we need you out there. We need you out there. Well, hey, this is a unique opportunity that we get, of course, with Dr. Lutzer filling the pulpit this weekend. And honestly, this was something that I tried to do, I think, 2 years ago when you were writing, and it didn't work out then because you needed to finish writing a book as you do during those times where you're not preaching, either somewhere else on vacation or writing a book. But this time it happened to work out. You got your book finished up a little early or on time. I don't know what it was.
Well,
I think you're finished.
I was telling Dr. Lutzer in the crowd last night, I actually finished a chapter for the NEC book that's coming out next summer. Actually finished it yesterday afternoon, and it was on the very topic that Dr. Lutzer preached on. And when I was done writing it, and then I heard his sermon, I thought I got to go back and rewrite it. He brought up passages I just didn't even think of, and so yeah.
All right, so now I'm cutting.
It's definitely a B- chapter now. Yeah.
I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's great. Well, this is a great opportunity that we have, and I know many of you know Pastor Mike and Carlynn because you've been under his preaching for years and decades. But this is a unique opportunity because you get to hear more of his story. I know you've heard it throughout his sermons and illustrations, but hear more of his story and how God has continued to use this wonderful couple in great ways. I know they've impacted my life in ways I can't quite explain because it's so much, and I know many of you can attest to that as well. But it's a great opportunity. We get to see and hear how God has led them to where they are today. And so one way we like to start interviews, as you know, if you've been here before, is with testimonies, because that is the most important thing about us is how God drew us to him and saved us ultimately, and how he's using us for his good purposes now. And so, Pastor Mike, I'd love to start with you in regards to just tell us a little bit about your testimony, your upbringing, and we get to hang out with your parents quite a bit, and we've heard some stories from them, but we want to hear from you too and see how they connect.
Well, I hung out with them for a while too, till I was 17 and a half or so, and then I got shipped off to Bible school and became a Christian my first year at Bible school at Moody Bible Institute, and my pastor was Erwin Lutzer when I got there. So, I became a Christian as a freshman at Moody. I didn't want to go there. I assume most people know that story. I grew up in church, of course, church kid. Fine church. It just was like a lot of church kids, a lot of conformity from, as I often say, the outside in and not the inside out. And Dad forced us to go, my brother and I, to go to Bible school. He went 4 years before I went. And then I went out there and didn't want to go. Went with a bad attitude, but got there. And then God kind of wrestled me to the mat with being confronted with, what am I doing here? And it was a sermon in October on a Friday night. And it was a missions weekend or something. And it just all came together after a month of being in the classroom, reading the Bible, reading, all the books that they were assigning, and on the verge of checking out. Like, either I need to leave this altogether or I need to rethink all of this. My roommate was a great example of a genuine Christian from the inside out. And, Drew was a great example. And I said, okay, this needs to be either all in or I need to skip it all. And, of course, God didn't let that happen. And I remember kneeling down by my bedside with my dorm room window open in room 1609 on the 16th floor of our dorm in downtown Chicago. And I said, God, I'm done fighting, and became a Christian right there as a freshman. And then I was in a good spot for a new Christian, right? I was enrolled in Bible. And the only reason I was enrolled in Bible is because I was only planning to go there 1 year, because that's what Dad said. You got to go for a year. And, I don't even know how I got in, because I didn't fill out half the paperwork. And when I got up to, this is the days where you had to go in front of a registrar in a bunch of lines, and I got to the front, and she said, "Oh, your paperwork's not complete. You don't have a major." And I said, "Well, I'm only going to be here for a year. I don't need a major, do I?" She said, "Oh, you got to have a major." And I said, "Well, I don't care." She said, "Well, yeah, but you have to have a major." And I said, "Well, just put down whatever. Just what do most people major in here at Moody Bible Institute?" And she said, "Well, most people major in the Bible." I said, "Well, okay, put that down." And then I became a Christian like a month and a half later, and that was the perfect major for me. So, yeah.
I'm glad that worked out for you. That's awesome. Well, Carlynn, tell us your story. We'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah, well, I did not grow up in a Christian home, and my parents actually both departed from the church when I was young, and they divorced when I was 5, and they departed from the church then. And yet I had grandparents who loved the Lord and would take us on vacation and long road trips to Mammoth Lakes. They had a cabin up there, and we would drive, and they would tell me stories of the Old Testament. And I just remember loving driving all those miles because I got to learn about all these real people in the Bible. And so they gave me a love for God and His Word and His people, and way before I ever became a Christian. So don't shortchange yourself, grandparents. You never know what you might be able to accomplish. But they gave me a fear and a love for God and His Word to the point where I was actually reading my Bible as a high schooler. Without anybody telling me to, without going to church, I was getting up every morning and reading my Bible because I loved God and I loved His Word. And then, well, frankly, it's all connected. Then I actually met him. So
Him.
in high school, and because
The non-Christian churchgoer.
Yeah, well, and I was the non-Christian, non-churchgoer, so it kind of made sense. But we met in high school, and well, I don't know. Want to get to that part of the story yet, but
We're here.
you want to just meld it all together?
I don't care what you say. Just tell them the truth. And
Did you have any doubt that I was going to tell you the truth? Anyway, we met in high school and we started dating. We'll get back to that, I guess, later. And we started dating, and I did not go to church anywhere, but I loved God. And that was pretty good. That was good enough for him at the time. So he invited me to church with him.
Theologically, we should say she's like Cornelius in the book of Acts, right? You can't
Okay,
really
I'll take
love
that.
God as a non-Christian the way that she would love God as a Christian, but she was a God-fearer. Let's put it that way. Okay? Yeah. I mean, just to theologically analyze it. She wasn't saved, but she feared the Lord, so that's a good start.
Can't take the preacher out of him Sunday morning.
I was going to
You see
say,
that?
I didn't say that
I
I
can
was
get
a
a pulpit
Christian,
right
right?
here.
No, anyway, so I started going to church with him, and I started hearing the gospel like every week. And, I wanted to pray the prayer every time they were going to pray the prayer. And I was like right there. All I needed was someone to actually ask me, to talk to me personally about where I was with God. I was what we call low-hanging fruit, and I was really low-hanging fruit. And on Mother's Day, his mother asked him he asked his mother what she wanted for Mother's Day. And Melba said, "I just want you to bring your new girlfriend to lunch at our house. That's all I want for Mother's Day." And so I went.
The price was right. I still was very afraid of that, but I
Yes, tell them why you were afraid of that.
thought I could afford that because I knew she was, probably not ready to be in my home and face my family.
Yes.
How did you feel when that invitation was given, Pastor Mike? Were you trying to talk her out of it, trying to not make it happen, or?
I figured we had been dating long enough, and she'd been to enough church services that probably this would, I was gambling this would go okay. I thought, she's got the Christian story down, and, she's a good kid. And now she's got a lot of Jesus talk, and it's pretty straight and orderly, and her theology seems to be forming, and I think she'll do okay. I thought she would do okay. She didn't do very well.
Yes, well, Jake, it's all due to Jake. Jake turned to me in the middle of that lunch and he said, "So, Carlynn, what church were you at when you became a Christian?"
All she had to say was, well, there's several things you could have said.
Looking back on it.
But tell them what you said.
Only because of the grace of God, I said, "I don't think I have ever become a Christian." That was not the answer Mike was looking for.
Not if I wanted to keep my girlfriend, I figured. Right, because that was the rule. Not only did I have to go to Bible school when I graduated, but I had to date a Christian girl. The Christian part was the only thing that you needed to say at this lunch. And it didn't come out of your mouth.
No, it did not come out of my mouth because, again, God had spent I'd been at their church for 6 months, and I'd been hearing the gospel over and over. And like I said, I just needed a person to ask me, and that person was Jake. And he led me to Christ right there at the lunch table. But sadly, Pastor Mike was not there. Because, frankly, all the forks stopped, right? You know, the one rule besides Bible school is you have to date a Christian. So everybody stopped eating. And, of course, they didn't look at me. They looked at him. And he got up and walked out and drove away. Now, he did have to go to work.
Thanks for having us here,
sometime
Carlynn.
later.
So you wondered why I put this off 2 years ago?
But in his defense, he wasn't saved either, right? He was just trying to get me to say enough good stuff to pass the test. And God worked on my heart that day, and then a few months later, he went to Bible school, and God worked on his heart, and then he called me and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm not coming back. I'm staying at Bible school."
That works out. So how did the relationship continue?
Long distance.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
Yeah. Writing letters. And
I was still in high school, so we had met in a high school class. That's how we started dating to begin with. But I went to UCI. I finished high school. I went to UCI, and he kept going in Bible college. And then his last year, I got to join him there. So I got to go for 1 year. I got my 1 year of Bible school too, just at the tail end, not at the beginning.
And Carlynn, what were you going to school for? Because it wasn't,
Well, I was going to school to be a teacher. And so at Moody, I was in Christian education, but I ended up finishing up in elementary education at University of Arizona, which is a whole nother story. Different state, different time, different college.
Yeah. And so if you fast forward, Pastor Mike, for you, at what moment did you think, okay, this is a calling. This is something I want to, look at full-time ministry? Because you get into Bible college, or you're in Bible college, and then you get saved, you start to fall in love with it. Is there a point in time where you thought, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it wasn't as dramatic as some people speak of. It was just that I was so into what I was studying, and it was so overwhelming that I wanted to teach it, I wanted to live it, and every semester when you were at Moody, you were assigned a ministry you had to be involved in. And so I was thrown into door-to-door evangelism, teaching a Sunday school class, serving in a nursing home. I led worship there. All these different things you had to do, and it was a great outlet for everything I was learning. I was a new Christian. It was all exciting. And my last year, I guess the year, I don't know what year I did Inner City Impact. Before you came? Yeah. My junior year, or whatever, the last year before she came, I was asked to teach at a ministry called Inner City Impact, which is they're trying to keep kids out of gangs in Humboldt Park, which was a pretty bad area back then in the 80s. And so they would lock these kids in this room on Thursday nights. We'd do games. It was like an Awana thing, but I got it assigned to teach. They asked me to teach. And that was the first time I was in a crowd like this with a lot of people standing up to teach. And I taught small groups, and I loved that. But that kind of showed me maybe I could teach more than 5 people at a time. And I just enjoyed the challenge of trying to teach what I was learning to people and grab them all the way in the back row. And it was really, that was kind of a turning point of, this is great. And then I started looking at when I had the opportunity to choose what I wanted to do. The year she came out to Chicago, I thought I was at a place to really think rightly about all of this when I was in college. So I said, I want to do college ministry. So I got involved in college ministry. We went to a little church in the suburbs in Brookfield, Illinois, and we volunteered to lead the college ministry there. I was also working with InterVarsity, and I did stuff on Circle Campus in Chicago, and I did evangelism, and I just loved campus ministry. And then in the church, I loved working with college students because I was just reflecting what I needed. I didn't think about ministry as a career. As a matter of fact, every time I thought about that, I thought, I'm not cut out for that. That's not what I would ever do. And so I just focused on doing whatever was in front of me. And then I just thought, this is the most important thing I can do. So I just kept doing it. At Moody, and my folks said, we'll pay for Moody. But after that, you better figure out this life thing. And so I needed to get my degree finished up. I needed a liberal arts track. So I got an ad for a need for a college pastor in Tucson, Arizona at First Baptist Church. They were looking for a guy, and they were going to pay his university tuition and his room and board. And I thought, that's me. I need to do that. So I applied, and they accepted me, and we got engaged. I graduated from Moody. I went to the university, and again, that was driven out of practicality. I got to finish a degree. I need a university education, and they're going to pay for it. I need to do that. So I was just trying to earn my way through school. And of course, I did something that I loved doing, and teaching the Bible, discipleship, evangelism, apologetics, all that on campus at the university. And I loved it. And so then I found myself on staff at a church, because that was a regular church. And I guess in Brookfield we were volunteering, but I was getting paid at this church now. So then I needed to go to seminary, or wanted to go to seminary. I thought I need a master's degree. So there was nothing in Tucson for me. So I put out the call, where can I work? Because I loved working. I didn't want to stop working. Where can I go get a seminary education while I work full time? And then I put out, the call here in Southern California. I got 3 offers after being interviewed in San Clemente, in Upland, and in Newhall. I got 3 offers. And so we prayed hard, like, what do we do? We were in our little 1-bedroom apartment on 5th Street in Tucson, and cockroach-infested city. Not just our apartment, just the whole city is cockroach-infested. So we prayed, we fasted, we said, God, what do you want us to do? And again, here's really what drove that. I think, I don't know, it was a long time ago, but I was like, I need more education. And to do that, I love doing what I'm doing in this church, and you got to get paid to eat. So I got to work in a church to get this education, and I don't want to work part-time. I need to work full-time. I'm going to get married, which we knew we were going to move to California to get married. And so it wasn't like Macedonian call. It was just, that's what I'm going to do if they think I'm worthy of hiring. So I got 3 churches to say, we'll hire you, and I had to pick between those 3. And I picked San Clemente only because the pastor, 65, retired South American missionary, had just such a pure, I think, mission for the church. He talked my language about evangelism and discipleship, and he just wasn't a traditionalist, even though it was an old traditional conservative Baptist church. He just put his arm around me and said, we want to reach the city for Christ. And I'm like, yeah, it just resonated. Great guys at the other 2 places. I mean, really, especially in Newhall, it was a great opportunity. But I turned down what were really better churches, quote unquote, for the better connection with this 65-year-old guy. So that's when we said, we're going to move our U-Haul to San Clemente. And we moved to San Clemente. We started a month into it. He walks into my office, and it's just me and him and a secretary, just the 3 of us there. And He said, I've just come back from the doctor. They diagnosed me with bone cancer. They gave me 12 months to live. So that was my call to ministry, probably. Because he said, I'm probably going to need you to do stuff more.
And how long had you been there at that time?
A month,
right?
probably.
A month.
Yeah, he was 23.
I was 23, yeah. And I'd been there probably a month. And I was just figuring out where stuff should go in my office. And now he said, and what, he's one of the, it's like a lot of people, I suppose. Like I would probably be. But he was like, I don't want to mess up anything in your life and your education at Talbot. And you do the ministry I called you to do. And don't let this mess anything up, But you're probably going to have to preach and run the board meetings and, kind of take over this little church. So it kind of messed things. It messed things up, but I was like, I'm all about it. Let's do it. So that really was the call. I mean, I got pushed into senior leading because he was dying, and what was great is I could go to his bedside, radiation, chemo, all that. He took a dive, but he was cogent enough to coach me. Here's how to read a spread, a balance sheet or a P&L, and now go to the board meeting and, there's a little board, but, go tell these guys, here's what we need to do. And so I would walk in as a 23-year-old trying to figure this all out. So I learned as I went. It was a small church. He died. I didn't know what I was going to do. I called the office up in Anaheim. It was a conservative Baptist church, a very loose association of churches. What do I do? Dennis, the guy who was in charge, said, just preach, do nothing for 6 months, let them grieve the loss of their pastor, bury him. They buried him over at Pacific View, right by John Wayne's plot, by the way. Anyway, just remember that day. Did his service, came back. He said, let them grieve for 6 months, and then in 6 months put together a search committee, and then I'll tell you how to do it. And so now I'm trying to do all that. I'm 24 at this point, and just at the 6-month mark, the pastor's wife gets diagnosed with esophageal cancer and just deteriorates within a couple of months. She's gone. So now I call him again, Dennis, what do I do? He says, well, just preach for 6 months, and then 6 months later you can put together a search committee, and I'll tell you. I'm like, okay. So I end up doing this kind of just holding pattern for.
Yeah, but you kept getting a little bit older and a little bit older, which was good.
And I love the church. I love these people, and I've been the interim pastor now as a guy preaching to my grandparents' aged people, and I just was like, we were on a little church down on Marquita, little A-frame church, and we did the best we could. And by the time all this time had elapsed, he died, 6 months, another 6 months. I had been caring for these people the best I could and preaching to them. Now it was time to put a search committee together, and I figured out how to do it with some counsel, and then I really waited to see what they would do, because I said, okay, you need to put together a profile. What kind of pastor do you want? And of course, a lot of the examples of what that looks like usually has an age range, 35 to 55 years old and blah, 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 blah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to see that and know my days are numbered here. And Dennis told me, as soon as they do that, as soon as the guy gets picked, you give him your letter of resignation. He's either going to take it or he's not going to take it based on the budget. And hey, just come back to my office and we'll find you a job. I'm like, well, okay. So it came back and it had no age. Maybe the printer didn't work right, or I don't know. But there was no age requirement on it.
Yeah, and our church was like 125 people, and frankly, it looked just like you all. And so
what does that mean?
26.
What did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is most of these people are our age or more mature. That's what our church looked like. And he was 26 years old now. It didn't look like the church that would hire a 26-year-old pastor, is all I'm trying to say.
And they almost didn't.
They almost did it.
And they almost didn't, because the dumb Constitution
it was a voting thing
said it had to be 80%. And, of course, 80%, and the membership is less than the attendance.
It was like 60.
Yeah, so all you needed was one family, if they happen to have voting-age teenagers, to say, we don't want this guy. And if you've been there now for 2.5 years or whatever, there's plenty of people that didn't like me. Hopefully they're not members, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
And
it's just a couple people.
Like by one vote, I might have made it. Yeah. And then they voted me in, and I said, okay, let's get to work. And I really just depended on what the previous pastor had coached me, discipled me, and I thought, I'm going to do exactly what he said.
And his vision.
Right, whatever
Take
he
his
said,
vision and
I'm
go.
just going to, because I'm too young, I have to do what he said. And so he said, there was a piece of property on the top of Frontera, and he said, it's zoned for a church. After he retired as a missionary, he got his real estate license just to make his ends meet. And he said, we need to grab that. And he called it the Promised Land on the other side of the freeway. He said, we're going to build this church there. So I said, okay, now I'm the pastor, and let's do what the pastor said. And, and I did what we could. We put the church on the market, and it sold.
And the church had been on the market for years and not sold.
Yeah, well,
but then we took it off because of all the drama.
Right, Denver had wanted that, and it didn't go anywhere. He dies, we put it back on. It went somewhere, and we grabbed 3.5 acres, and then it just all snowballed from there. And then it was like, let's grab more of it. Let's get all of it. The Catholics owned the other half of it, and I remember putting on my suit and my one suit and driving to the Diocese of Orange, and we finally acquired the 5 acres from the Lusk Company, and that Rick Talcott was working for at the time, I think. And I met with John Lusk Sr., who's like dad, or he can tell you this, whether it's true or not. Dad, I think his dad was a pastor, Methodist pastor. So he's trying to do a good deed for us. It was before the economy turned. But anyway, we got good terms on it. And again, I'm so young and inexperienced, but God opened a door for the purchase of 3.5 and then the 1.5, and we got 5 acres. The other 5 acres was owned by the Catholics. So I said, well, we want to get it all. It was my young attitude, and kind of still my attitude. But I was like, let's just claim this all for Christ. I don't want the Catholics next to us here. So I drove up to Orange, and I said, I got a meeting, with the Pope, and the bishop or the cardinal, whatever he was, and of Orange County, the head of the Orange County Diocese. And I remember this. I said, I'd like. I'm probably nervous, pencil. I'd like to purchase that 5 acres on Frontera, and he laughed. He laughed. He said to me, I'll never forget. He said, "Son," he probably said, "Son, we don't sell property. We buy property." And I said, "Oh, okay." And I don't know what else I said after that, but that's all I remembered, and I walked out. Well. It wasn't that long later. Things started going really bad for the Diocese of Orange, and lawsuits and whatever. And sure enough, by God's working, they got back to us and eventually wanted to sell it. Yep. So anyway, by God's grace, we got it. By God's grace, yeah. Anyway, so that was the story of kind of getting thrown into. Where's my call to ministry? Somewhere in there, I think. I hope. Was the call to ministry. I just not sure where.
Yeah, and Carlynn, for you, obviously not knowing this was going to be the future, how was your disposition with all of this? Was it once he had this call and sort of this path towards ministry, were you all on board? Were there any reservations in your mind early on, or?
Yes. Well, I knew that he sat me down one day at Moody Bible Institute in the lobby of the girls' dorm, and he said, "I am going to go do whatever God wants, wherever God wants, any place, anything, anytime, I'm going to do this." He's like, "Do you want to go with me?" And, well, frankly, I was scared out of my mind, because I was 19 years old and I knew where he was going. Okay, I didn't know he'd be sitting on this stage, but I knew he'd be sitting on some stage somewhere. or he'd be in some mission field, but he would be giving his life for Christ and reaching people and teaching the word faithfully. And I was scared. I heard about pastors' wives and pastors' kids, and I knew that would be a life of sacrifice. And to be honest, I thought I would be a single parent. I just thought he would be out, doing ministry, and I'd be home trying to figure out what to do. So he said, "You want to do it with me?" And I said, "No." And we broke up that night. And I knew that he was asking me to marry him without asking me to marry him. And anyway, that night I couldn't sleep because, of course, the Lord said to me, "You know what? You told me when you became a Christian at that dinner table, you told me you would do anything, any place, at any time, because that's the gospel. You said you would do whatever I asked you to do. How come you're not willing to do that now?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I give up." And so I went down the next day and I said, "I'm ready to do whatever you get called to do. I'm ready to go with you." And the next week, he had the ring and asked me to marry him.
That's smooth. You got rejected, you stayed in there and got your gal.
Just one day.
Yeah, no, that happened. That's all true. And I actually went downtown Chicago to buy the ring, and you know who was buying a ring at the same time? Warren Wiersbe's son was in the jewelry store at the same time. It's claim to fame. It's still that little rock right there. You need to zoom in on that. It's tiny.
Well, he's offered to update it, but
I did, but she won't. But it's tiny. It's flawed.
It's
us. It's a bad cut.
It's it.
It's us. There you go.
It's where we started.
Yeah,
it's who we are.
We even got a photo of wedding day. How about that? You want to see wedding day? Y'all want to see wedding day? Let's see if we can get wedding day, because this is beautiful. Look at that style. That style. That mustache.
We were 20 and 21 there, so.
But that's some
many
style
moons
there.
ago.
I'm just saying.
Yep.
I want those glasses back, Pastor Mike. That is the Jake mustache, though. That's a good-looking one. Remember that day?
Oh, I remember.
Where was that at?
Bethany Church in Long Beach.
In Long Beach. Okay. Gotcha. That's good. Wonderful.
Same church that Kevin and Tana, that I officiated their wedding at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kevin and Tana Larson got married.
That's awesome. So you've been pastoring since, it's what, late 80s when you got to that church in San Clemente, right?
88.
88. So 80s, 90s. Let's just look at that. From the 80s to 2000 versus 2000 to 2025. What's the biggest change with pastoring a church, South Orange County? I guess what's the biggest difference between those two, decades plus that I mentioned? So 88 to 2000, 2000 to 2025. What have you seen as a pastor and pastor's wife that's significantly different between the two? Obviously, there's a lot that's the same, but what would you say the biggest difference is?
It's the same challenges in terms of people's lives, right? Everyone is sinful, selfish, self-absorbed, and trying to get people by God's grace and by the work of His Spirit to no longer live for themselves, but to live for Him who died for them and rose again. That's the work of God, and just to pray and seek and pray and preach and pray and counsel people to get there. That's the same battle. I mean, the culture keeps changing. Things that, of course, have happened with lightning speed in the last 20 years. It makes it more challenging, and yet it makes it more distinctive, right? To be a Christian today, I hope there's no confusion that you're a Christian, because you can't be the world. And, I know where you grew up in the Bible Belt, back in the day at least, you could be a cultural Christian a lot easier than I could, and yet I was. And to be now thinking about raising even our teens in our church, I hope that the distinctiveness of Christianity and how that's supposed to be lived out, I hope is a cleaner break. We're living in Canaanite country, and that's the whole country, the whole West. So I don't know. It's the same stuff. It's a different world. It's the same battle, the same hearts that are struggling, different temptations, I suppose, different avenues for the same temptations. But yeah, I don't know. The church, of course, is different. We have a different kind of daily focus, maybe. We're still dealing with Scripture and people, but the church is not the same. Although it is the same, because it's just that in the olden days, every person who had any issue, we were the first line of defense, which is not the case anymore. And you sit around the table, we have multiple layers of great people serving the people that come. So that's different, because I remember after the pastor died, I was the only guy sitting in an office all day long. And that's different by God's grace, and I'm glad of that. I think big churches can do a lot of good things. So I'm grateful to be a part of a larger church. It's not gigantic, but it's big enough to do good ministry, and it's good to have a good team to share the load. I just think that's a great change, but that's just part of the. Lyle Schaller used to write books about the way every season of a church's growth changes it in such dynamic ways that it's a whole different animal, as he illustrated in his books. And I just think that is true. I've pastored churches that are 100 all the way through, the seasons of change, and they're all different, and they demand different things of you administratively, I think. But you're still at the end of the day fighting the same battles in one way or another.
What about you, Carlynn? What have you seen on your end?
I feel like it seems like that more people trusted the church 20, 30 years ago, trusted the church. They would have said, they would have respected in some way the Bible or the church. Now, it feels like sometimes they hate us. Like if you bring up the Bible or church, all of a sudden you're not listened to anymore. I also think there's been a real shift, at least from my perspective, of the family has always been important. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like even in the church, the family has become, well, frankly, sometimes more important than anything else. And that feels like it's exponentially worse. At least in women's ministry, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, and something you said about the outlook of the church, I even think about from like a resume standpoint of a job, it used to be an honorable thing to say, hey, I belong to a church, or I do. Now you do that, you won't get the job. So it's just completely changed because of the perception of the church. And even within the church, too, I think people they go to the pastors and the leaders, and before you take that, and that would be the priority, counsel, but now it's like, well, I read this on ChatGPT, or somebody else said this, my favorite podcast pastor, and that's different too. Yeah, that's interesting. Here's a question for the both of you. Obviously, you've been in ministry for 40 years. If you could go back now and tell young Pastor Mike, young Carlynn in their 20s, give them some counsel, what would you say, having all these years of experience now and seeing what you've seen?
I think I would tell myself it's going to be okay. I would reassure myself that that no matter what, because I can't say that everything has been beautiful. I was afraid of going to the mission field with cockroaches when he asked me to marry him. But, we just have different shapes of enemies and battles. Even they weren't literal cockroaches. Well, they were for a couple years, they were. But beyond that, so I think I'd tell myself it's going to be okay. Just trust God. And I would also remind myself it's just work. We're here to work. And someday we're going to get to rest. But we're here to work. So put on your whatever. I was going to say overalls, but that doesn't make sense. Put on your jeans and your tennis shoes and get to work. It's just work. And someday it'll be over.
Excellent.
I think I've always said it, but to somehow impress on younger Mike that it doesn't matter what people think. in the end, right? You have to really be absorbed with what God thinks. And, Galatians, it's Paul saying, it's not about pleasing people, which I hope my ministry at some point has reflected that value, but it can tip in that direction. But to have that be your complete daily concern, to not be all uptight about what's this going to do to people's opinion of the church or of us, And I have worried about that in years gone by, and even now. And I just to get that settled early on, and to not worry so much about that. And yet, you want to serve people well, which means you have to sometimes meet their felt needs. I mean, clearly. But I've watched so much come and go in terms of people that swear their undying devotion to you, and then they turn and they rip you. And we've had so much betrayal, and so many people that you realize are so fake, they're so phony. They don't, you don't want to become a full-blown skeptic of people's fawning, but, and we're past that at this point, right? There was a time early on I would keep a compliment letter and put it in a file when we used to have file cabinets, and that went away pretty quick because I realized, I'll have to go throw those letters away because ministry is a lot harder than you might think. It's a volunteer organization. Most of your workers and leaders are volunteers. The people that come aren't customers. They're volunteers. They take their offering away before they take their presents away. They turn on a dime, and the old adage, you're as good as your last sermon, is so true in people's minds. I am discarded in people's minds so quickly that you start to realize you can't, I'd want to go back and say you can't take all that to heart, which you realize. And I tell guys in my pastoral ministries class, if you have a thin skin, you can't do this job. You just got to stop. You don't get out of it now. And yet, to be able to teach that to myself and say, don't let it get you down, right? I'd probably try to impress that somehow. I don't know how, electric shock therapy or something. I don't know how to do it, because you think you have to mature to kind of figure that out, right? Without becoming a curmudgeon. You don't want to become a curmudgeon and say, I don't care what you think. I do care what people think, but I don't want it to paralyze you, because it does set you up for compromise, right? If you just want to say what people want to hear, right? That's the whole of 2 Timothy 4. You don't want to give itching ears what they want to hear, which I hope that's clear in my preaching ministry. At least I'm not trying to tell people what they want to hear. I want to be faithful to God's word. But it's more than that. It's the pastoral part of this where people don't get, I meet people. I was telling Carlynn, I was sat on a plane next to someone who left the church, and there God sits me right next to them. I was like, oh, great. To most people, they don't think twice about that. Right. When someone leaves the church, right, they're rejecting you, right? I'm done. You don't want you as my pastor. I don't want your sermons anymore. I'm not interested in your leadership in my spiritual life. That, especially as a young pastor, is so hard. And it's as hard as me coming home from a trip going, hey, Carlynn, guess who I sat next to on the plane? It still stings, and you have to say to yourself early on, don't let that get to you, right? Yeah. You have to be steady and faithful to just whoever comes, whoever stays, whoever's loyal's loyal, and don't care. I mean, yeah, the stories I could tell, it's a lot of disloyalty and a lot of ebb and flow of just the feelings of, if I did this different, would these people be still with me, And you can't think that way.
Yeah. I'd love to hear just a few words on just parenting, because, your two sons, Pastor Matt and Pastor John, pastors, and then wonderful daughter Stephanie. Just when you were training them up as kids, was there a thought of, hey, I want my boys to be pastors, or how was that parenting? Because obviously we know it's a calling by God ultimately that they would be called, but was that a thought early on because of how it shaped your life and transformed your life to train them up that way, or what was the priority there?
I just think we wanted them to be faithful servants in the church. And God morphed it into more than that, because when they got saved, God gifted them with their spiritual gifts to be used for the good of the body. And we all have them. Theirs just happen to be ones that minister to more people all at once and, basically take over more of their life. And so we just wanted them to serve. That was our goal for them. We didn't care what they did, but we did want them to choose something that was going to matter. I mean, so I guess there's that. We did choose something that's going to matter in this world.
Here's a brash way to put it from my perspective. I did want to make sure my kids didn't think I was an idiot. I'm giving my life to this.
Right.
It's important.
Right.
So, I mean, and its whole life, and I often told other pastors, like, I do want you to be the same person at home as you are at church, and I want them to know that this is not just a job. So I felt like there was some success, at least in knowing that the kids knew this. We cared about this 24/7. We care about the church. We care about these people. We care about serving them. We're willing to spend and be expended for them. And that's the part where I don't want you to think I'm an idiot. This is important. So when they learned it was important, right? I don't care what you do, but you better go to church, better serve in the church. And we really didn't expect our kids to be in ministry. But I think making sure that our kids know, I don't want you kids to think we're dumb. This is important. And they learned it was
Most
important.
important.
And then without any pushing, prompting, they, as God, I think, worked in their heart, we'd like to do important stuff too. Well, everything's important. I have a Puritan work ethic, clearly. You could be a dentist or plumber, whatever. Go do it for God. I mean, I believe in what the Bible says, but they want to do this, great. I mean, great. If you have aptitude to do it and calling, whatever that means, yeah, opportunity. What I often say, you've heard me say this, a calling to ministry is someone calling you and saying, come work here. That's a calling to ministry, right? To demystify it. You're not called to ministry if no one's calling you to the ministry. So, and you say, well, God's calling me. Well, not if anyone's not calling you. I mean, right? You're not called if no one's saying, hey, come work here. So, I mean, you get really spiritual. Well, what if you're in Asia Minor in the first century? But still, Paul's going to say, hey, come with me, right? I don't know. I think, yeah, they would have to find someone willing to take their giftedness and say, we want to use you. And we did not push Elliot to hire Pastor Matt, right? Pastor Elliot did this on it. I remember the day we found out. And we haven't, I mean, whatever, you're on staff, you're a pastor. We've tried not to ever be nepotistic about John's ministry, right? He's the next to go, so like, see ya. So, I mean, there's no nepotism here. I can say with a clear conscience, I just want them to do whatever God's called them to do, and if they're called to ministry, great. Yeah.
Carlynn, I did want to just ask you for a second, because you spend a lot of time with pastors' wives, more than people would ever know, and even all the ladies on staff. I know that you meet with them, you meet with pastors' wives monthly. Why is that important to you? Because, yeah, you could see them in passing and text them, but you spend the time to walk and talk and pray and do that for them. Why is that so important to you in your role?
Well, it's important because we're all rowing in the same direction together, to me. That's why it's important, because all of them are, I mean, yes, they see the amazing answers to prayer that happens when y'all share things with them, and they get to pray for you, and then they get to find out, oh, this is what God did. But they also see a lot of the, less than complimentary things that come out of people's mouths or emails or texts or comments, whatever. And I feel like we're all rowing in the same direction. And I want to be there to support them. Yes, we get the high highs, but we also get the low lows if you work for the church or you're married to somebody who works for the church. So I primarily want to be there because I love them. I'm thankful for their sacrifice. I know the day I had to make the decision to do this, I know they all had to make that decision too. I know they all chose a life of sacrifice, even if they're, in some other, they're not a pastor's wife, they're on some other staff position. It's still a life of sacrifice. And it's a life of living to a certain standard. I mean, we're taking the offerings given by people like you to pay them. We all need to live up to a certain standard. So I love them. And I want to be there for them because I know the job they're doing and I appreciate the sacrifice they're making. But, secondarily, of course, we all want to stay a united family as too. And frankly, without women, a lot of the yucky stuff that happens in the church-wide, if they weren't spearheading it, it wouldn't go anywhere. So, of course, it's a protection too. I mean, we all need to be on the same united team. We're all in this together. We're all meeting together. We all love each other. So it's a protective measure, but primarily it's because I love them and I appreciate them. But it's also a protective measure for our church.
Yeah, that's great. Let me ask this one more question, and then I got some quick rapid-fire questions for you. But again, 40 years in this, what motivates you? And I know the answer, obviously, we want to glorify Christ, but what's in your heart, your mind, as you get up every morning and, even the hard weekends, the hard days to say, I'm full speed ahead here at Compass Bible Church? Is there one particular thing or something that's always, and Pastor Mike, you asked this recently, to us as pastors, like what is your why? I guess that helps you get through the what of ministry. What is your why?
Yeah, well, in that meeting where I was pressing that, I do think that is the part that can't get lost, especially if you're a leader in a church. You've got to remember the why. And we can get focused on the what, like we need a new program. What do we do? Does Rick do the financial seminars? Do we have a new building project? That's the what. But the why has to be the thing that drives us, and that should be what gets us out of bed in the morning. And that's why I hope we celebrate those things, and it is changed lives, right? New Christians, testimonies we hear in the baptismal tank, the numbers we see in men in faith, women in faith, the things that are happening where people's lives are being connected to Christ, and the churches that we're planting, the numbers that continue to multiply through Compass Church Planting Association, and I hope soon the books that are read and lives that are changed through Compass Press, the training that's going on. I did some interviews this week of students on camera, which will be out, just the way that CBI is changing lives. I mean, people are coming, people from Kansas and Texas and all over coming to CBI, and their lives are changing. That's the why. Right? Christ said, go make disciples. And then he said, teach them to observe all that I commanded. Right? And they're being sent there. Those 11 were, and we want to send the next generation. So that last one is more motivating now than it's ever been as we start to see more gray hair on ourselves. Myself, you fix that somehow. But
it's there.
Well, I don't see it, but I think often about how can we get this next, how can we leave behind something that keeps going? And how can this next generation, and I think with our church planning endeavor, we keep doing something that keeps us pulling up this new generation. And I know we get criticisms, I do at least, of young staff. Well, this is a good thing, right? I'm happy that we're pulling out people who are gifted and we can identify their gifts and their qualifications, and we can get them early. I mean, I learned this early in my mid-20s, and I think we can position people for a lifetime of service, and I think about that a lot. That's what's motivating me more so. I think about reaching, teaching, training. The training part is a lot of what motivates me now more than ever.
That's great. Carlynn?
I guess the why is I feel like what else would we do? I don't know. I guess I feel like God saved us. He gave us gifts. We told him we would do anything. So why would we not? I don't know. I guess that feels like why wouldn't I? And I mean, I think that applies to everybody. You don't have to get a paycheck from the church. That applies to everybody. We're saved to make a difference, and we're here until God says we're not. And why do we do it? We do it because it's what we're supposed to do. We do it because we love God. We do it because he saved us. We do it because we want to please him. We do it because that's why we're here. And when we're not here for that anymore, then he'll take us. So I guess it just feels like what we're supposed to do. And at the core of who I am, even before I was saved, I was a rule follower. So I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. Let's do it. So let's do it.
Amen. All right. Couple quick questions, fast for you. Favorite date night spot? You go to a restaurant. Where you two going?
Right now?
Right now.
Well, we like Franco's a lot.
Yeah, Franco's is good. I like
Go.
I like Brios. I like Brios a lot. Cheesecake. We like cheesecake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really like that they moved in a Mastro's into the Spectrum.
Yes, a Mastro's.
We don't go there very often, maybe once a
Yes.
year, but maybe
No, Mastro's is great.
that's a go-to, I hope,
Yes.
soon.
Yes.
I can see that happening. I can see that
I hope
happening.
so. Yeah.
That's good. Outside of Compass, most memorable or favorite, it's not favorite, but second to Compass, place that you preached or had to do a conference.
There is no other place.
No, I know that.
Nothing compares.
No.
Seriously, nothing compares.
100%. Compass, we understand that. But is there a most memorable place that you've spoken at or place you've gone to, had to travel to speak that just was a great time or just good memory?
Well, it's funny with Dr. Lutzer preaching in my parking lot here. The first time I preached in his pulpit was surreal because when I sat in his auditorium and he said in a sermon, what Christianity needs is not Christians that dabble in a lot of things, but we need Christians that do one thing and do it well. That was pivotal in my life, to put aside my instruments, my music, my jazz, and to say, okay, God, I want to find the one thing. His sermon was used by God to get me to think, what do you want me to do? And when I was, standing with a suit on in his pulpit with 4,000 seats at a founders conference I was asked to speak at, and I did that a couple of times, that was surreal because I thought, what am I doing up here? Yeah, so that was memorable. I won't forget that.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, Carlynn?
Oh, I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, seriously, the whole adage is true. There is no place like home. And it is not the same when you're guest speaking. But I will say that it's a great experience to guest speak. I love it because it reminds me that the body of Christ is much bigger than this little tiny place. We love it, and it's home and all that, and it's great to preach here, but seeing people faithfully following Christ in all these other places where, frankly, they don't have a lot of the advantages that you have going to Compass with ministry every day of the week, and you could be involved in so many things, and you could serve in so many ways, and you could be in so many small groups, and you could make such a difference. And a lot of these churches that we visit, they don't have that opportunity. So it makes us miss home when we're away even more, but it does make us realize, it just blows our mind out of how big the body of Christ is and how we just need to all keep trudging forward. But there is no place like home. I can't pick something. But I appreciate what God does to my mind, my brain, and my heart when I preach to other groups of Christian ladies.
Okay, most impactful book in your life. I know it's hard to, you can't say envy or preaching.
Oh, it was Envy by Mike Fabarez.
Ask Pastor Mike, what's your favorite book that you've
No,
read?
but I've said this probably before publicly, but when I was a new Christian, I read A. David Tozer's Knowledge of the Holy, which was super helpful to me just to expand my mind on thinking about God.
Yeah. And I'll say that was when you and I met, that was the first book you gave me to read, and it's on my top of my list too. So, yeah.
I hate to say it, but I don't actually have one favorite. I should probably say one of his books, but I don't have one favorite.
Envy
Sorry.
by Mike Fabarez.
I mean, if I had to, I guess I'd say Improving Your Serve by Chuck Swindoll. I just feel like I go back to that one again and again, and it just reminds me of what we're doing, why we're doing it. I do like that one. But, I mean, I have to pick genre, which is Christian biographies of Christian women that have faithfully stood for Christ. I mean, that's the genre that I love. That's the genre that I go to. But I don't have one. I just love learning about people and their faithfulness to God.
Awesome. Well, we want to say thank you, Juan, for being here. And we're going to get to your prayer request because we always want to continue to pray for those that we're interviewing. But before we get there, I do want to flash a couple pictures we didn't get to, but just so you get a snippet of their life. There's young. And here's something I have a question for the audience because Pastor Mike wouldn't tell me and ChatGPT wouldn't give me the answer. What is that blue thing he's holding? Anybody know?
You guys know that answer.
You say a radio?
It's a
Panasonic radio, yeah.
radio. It's the
It cracks open, turns into an S.
Remember the circle one?
Y'all seem unsure. I don't know.
You're too young to
What was that
understand
called,
these
you guys?
things.
Come on, you've seen it. The circle that was the radio. What was it called?
They don't know, but they do know it.
They
know
know
Okay.
it. They're shaking
All
where
right.
they know it.
Okay.
They're in museums now.
I'm buying glass. All right. And then there's Carlynn. How about that? It's wonderful, Carlynn. It's wonderful.
You dug deep.
Like
Or you have sources.
I have some. Well, I got some here right
yeah,
here.
you got all kinds.
What
of
about what
sources.
else we have? Just there's the sources. I have some sources. Jake, who is that?
Who is that, Jake?
Who is that? It's no mustache. The,
Look at my older brother. Do you see how
He's so
my
cool.
childhood I was
he's much bigger than you.
beaten and tortured? He looks like he was in a gang, doesn't he? He played football and I was in the band. So I got beat on a lot.
Well, that one looks like Levi, though, on the left.
Yeah, it does. All right, what else we got? We got a couple more. Look at that. I told Pastor Mike I want this Fall Fest next year. This outfit.
Yeah, that was high school. That's when we first started dating. Literally, the first year we started dating.
You guys all
I
had a
was
boom
16.
box on your shoulder, didn't you? Yeah.
All right.
That was a good one, too. That was a great boom box.
That's when he was in the jazz band.
With the boy. Forgot what else is up there. What else? We got one more? Here's the one I want to show you. So, and here's why I want to put this one up. So on the left is 24-Hour Fitness, Laguna Niguel, Agassiz, Super Sport. And you've heard the story I've told you before of how Pastor Mike and I got connected. My cousin lives in Dallas, told me about this pastor that she listened to on the radio, Focal Point. I needed to go find him, go find his church in the whole state of California. It happened to be 5 miles from my house. She had no idea. So you talk about God's there's providence and divine appointment for all of that. And so this is where my office was when I was at 24-Hour Fitness. And Pastor Mike works out on this elliptical. And you can't see the numbers, but he's burned 1,600, almost 1,700 calories at this point. He took a picture of this one. I don't know what you were trying to do there.
I was eating 4,000 calories before I got on it.
So
obviously,
anyway, this is where we met. So it's been almost 12 years ago to the day that I introduced myself to him because he worked out there, and I worked out there every morning as well. But I put this up there, and no, I was going to put all this up there because I just want to say publicly thank you, just because of what the both of you have done in my life and Chelsea's life. Came to this church, non-Christian, thought I was a Christian. Got saved. Pastor Mike has been there every step of the way. There's many times we would just talk. I'd stand on the elliptical next to him, and he just asked me questions about life and how things were going. And he was truly a friend. He was my pastor, obviously, but he was a friend. Got baptized, and then even the marriage retreat, that was back in 2017. I remember this. Chelsea had surprised me. She was a non-Christian. She surprised me with tickets to the marriage retreat, and we went there, and there they were. And then, obviously, getting hands laid on being installed as a pastor, and then side by side still when we did the end of life. So I put all that up there, long segue, because I wanted to give a public thank you. I can't express the impact that Pastor Mike has made on my life. Completely changed my life. He completely saw something in me that nobody else has seen. He's pushed me like nobody else has pushed me. He's been a model and just the best leader I've ever had, a spiritual father to me. And all the opportunities that I've had here, I would have never even signed my name up for it. But he saw something in me that I never saw. And he continues to drive me to be excellent as he is excellent. And I've never had a boss that I've wanted to work so hard for, wanted to run through a wall because I see the way he works. And so I want to say thank you. And I know Chelsea could say the same thing for you, Carlynn. But yeah, God brought you in my life at the gym for a reason. And
You guys met at the gym?
no, you.
Oh, me. I was going to say.
I can't tell you how Chelsea and I met. That's not
Okay, that's a different story.
non-Christian days. But anyway, I say all that to say I want to say a public thank you because I can share in a bite-sized chunk of what he's meant, but I just want you guys to know that everything that you know about him, it's tenfold when you get to work for him and with him and be with his family and with Carlynn. So I just want to say thank you, all of that, for what you've done. And we do have prayer requests because we want to continue to pray for you. And so, PM, if you can just quickly run us through a summary of what this.
Well, you asked for
is.
prayer requests, and I thought it'd be good if we could stay healthy and strong. And it'd be good if we could pass on, as I already kind of mentioned, that's a lot of what I think of lately. I mean, I don't feel like super elderly or anything, but I do think there's a lot of focus on passing on what we know to the pastors behind us, the leaders, the up-and-coming leaders. And then, the actual work that we do, that we lead, we teach. Carlynn does travel and teach and leads. And, of course, I have to teach and preach and write and stuff. So if that would be fruitful and good. Yeah. I'd like to be a better writer and a better preacher. That would be great.
Well, are we grateful to have Pastor Mike and Carlynn here this morning? Yeah. So thanks again for your time here. And let me conclude us in a word of prayer, and then we'll dismiss. Let's pray. God, we are so grateful for how you have used Pastor Mike, how you have used Carlynn, just in many different ways, impacting many lives and some that we will never even know. Just think about the radio ministry or just even how they go and guest speak in different places. But thank you for their faithfulness. Thank you for their endurance. Thank you for the example that they set here at Compass Bible Church. And we pray that you would give them many more years of fruitful ministry, of just discipleship and training and being worthy of imitation for all of us to follow. So we thank you for the blessing that they are to all of us, and pray that you would just continue to give them endurance to do it well. So help Pastor Mike in his writing and his preaching and discipling. Help Carlynn as well, as she is a helpmate to Pastor Mike and continues to disciple these young ladies of the next generation. And Lord, I just pray that you would continue to produce much fruit through Compass Bible Church. And we're so grateful that you have given us a leader in Pastor Mike and Carlynn by his side for us to follow, for us to continue to model our lives after as they model after Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.